Tonight, we're paying tribute to the thousands of lives lost and the hundreds of sacrifices made as we explore some of the untold stories of Black history. Thanks for joining us tonight, everybody. I'm Donna Terrell.
I'm Kevin Kelly. February is Black History Month. In the weeks leading up to February and throughout the month, we've shared stories with you highlighting everything from the discovery of a slave shipwreck to crucial moments in the civil rights movement.
So tonight, we'll recap some of those stories that we've already shared and bring you even more pieces of hidden history. We begin in the small Alabama community of Africatown. That's where direct descendants of the last slaves brought from Africa to the U.S. live. The slaves were aboard a ship called the Clotilda. It holds the story of 110 people stolen from the African nation of Dahomey, now known as Benin. The people were forced into slavery in the U.S. just before the Civil War began. It was a mission born on a bet between wealthy landowners that they could evade federal law and bring slaves into the country. To hide the evidence, the captain burned Clotilda to the waterline.
It would have let us know that our history was real, and it was told from the mouth of people that were on that ship.
Shortly before Christmas of 2017, environmental reporter Ben Raines thought he had uncovered the ship's final resting place. Crews later determined it was the scene of another shipwreck. However, they believe Clotilda's remains are nearby along the Mobile River.
Heading now to Maryland, where the Department of Transportation State Highway Administration recently uncovered a long-forgotten slave cemetery in Clownsville.
We have no history. We begin and we end here.
Washington correspondent Morgan Wright spoke with descendants of slaves that once worked and lived on the land and shows us how archaeologists made the discovery.
Deep in the forest, sisters Wanda Watts and Shelley Evans walk in the footsteps of their ancestors. The two women share a frustration common to many African Americans whose ancestors were enslaved in America.
We have no history. We begin and we end here.
But thanks to a recent and accidental discovery, the sisters may have uncovered their family's hidden history on this piece of land.
My 3 times great-grandmother was born here.
Evans and Watts are the descendants of slaves who lived, worked, and may have died here on what was the Belvoir Plantation. Dr. Julie Shablitsky is the chief archaeologist with the Maryland Department of Transportation.
We were initially looking for the Rochambeau encampment, which was during the American Revolution.
But instead, they found slave quarters, built in the 1780s and lived in until emancipation in 1864. The land was a tobacco plantation, once owned by relatives of Francis Scott Key, who wrote the Star-Spangled Banner. A former resident of the property tipped Dr. Shablitsky's team off to what they thought could be a slave cemetery tucked along a ravine deep in the woods. They found nearly half a dozen pieces of broken marble and stones resembling grave markers, but to be sure, Dr. Shablitsky brought in cadaver dogs.
For me, it was the knowledge of them being buried someplace rather than being tossed away.
But even so, they may never know for certain if their family is actually buried here at Belvoir. In Crownsville, Maryland, Morgan Wright.
Dr. Shablitsky says there are no immediate plans for the uncovered slave cemetery. The slave quarters have been fully excavated, and the Maryland Department of Transportation State Highway Administration plans to add interpretive panels to the site.
Lessons from the grave. One man's life and death is providing a very personal look at life as a slave in America. News anchor Scott McDonald shares his story.
In Waterbury, Connecticut, a peculiar headstone. It took 215 years for a proper burial of the man named Fortune.
Your history is in the bones.
In the 2 centuries, his bones have been on an unbelievable journey.
Mr. Fortune, the skeleton that we were looking at, was owned by this surgeon in Waterbury. He was probably working on his land.
Fortune was owned as a slave.
I think a lot of people don't realize how prevalent slavery still was in the Northeast.
Researchers and students from Quinnipiac University were able to study the skeleton of Fortune.
He was extremely robust.
And gain rare insight into what life was like as a New England slave. From lifestyle to diet,
It's feathering along the edge of the skull. It's due to nutritional deficiencies.
Disrespect in life and in death. The man who owned Fortune was a physician.
Bones were passed down from generation to generation.
Generation to generation.
The family used his skeleton to study osteology.
It is kind of a strange juxtaposition to know that, the very reason that he was used by the bone surgeon is also what ended up giving us some kind of evidence of what his life was like.
After 2 centuries, a ceremony held at Connecticut State Capitol.
We participated in the process of the burial, the funeral.
And Fortune's bones were put into a coffin. And through it all, a journey forcing all of us to look at a disturbing past.
Knowing your history means that you can kind of change your future.
For Hidden History, I'm Scott McDonald.
Fascinating story. Still to come. A passion to make a difference brings one reverend and civil rights icon together. Here in Indianapolis, preacher recall his time spent with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and how it impacted his life even to this day. Plus this.
It was founded 131 years ago at the end of slavery as an all-African-American town. And today, it's still standing. I'll take you to Edenville coming up.
The National Law Enforcement Museum in Washington, D.C. raises awareness about the hidden history of law enforcement. I'm Bree Jackson in Washington, D.C., and I'll tell you the story of the first African-American sheriff since Reconstruction.
We work very hard to make each customer feel special. I want our customers to feel appreciated. Whether it's your first time or your 15th time, we cherish that. So come see us at Cecil's. See what it's all about.
Cecil's Fine Jewelry. We want to be your jeweler for life.
The new Arkansas Boat Expo has partnered with the Good Life Expo, and it's coming to Conway Expo Center March 15th through 17th. Experience the thrill zone with a huge zip line. The first 1,000 plays win a boat. The next 1,000 plays win an RV. The Boat Expo with all kinds of boats from over 10 dealers. The Good Life Expo with RVs, ATVs, hunting, and more. 2 expos, 1 low admission. March 15th through 17th, Conway Expo Center. ArkansasBoatExpo.com. ArkansasBoatExpo.com.
More than 90% of U.S. nursing homes have been cited for federal health and safety violations. Violations that may have put your loved ones at risk. Conditions such as broken bones, head trauma, bed sores, or injuries from unexplained falls may be the result of improper supervision or neglect. If your loved one has been injured while residing in a nursing home, call Rainwater, Holt & Sexton. Anywhere in the state, dial 888-8888.
The rule of 3 states, things that come in threes are inherently more appealing than those that don't. We couldn't agree more. 3 SUVs, 1 GMC. Step up to GMC and pay no interest for 72 months on these select models in stock the longest. Plus, get up to $1,250 purchase allowance when you finance through GM Financial.
Welcome back, everyone. Now let's head to a small town in Florida steeped in history. It's the oldest town incorporated by African Americans and is celebrating more than 130 years of existence. Rod Carter brings us this story.
About 6 miles north of Orlando, there sits a small piece of history.
And it's controlled absolutely by Afro-Americans.
The town of Edenville, incorporated in 1887, the oldest African-American town in the United States.
At that time, the blacks and the whites were all together in Maitland. And then they just wanted to have something they could call their own.
It's named after Josiah C. Eden, one of a small group of white landowners who were willing to sell their land to blacks at the time.
My father built the elementary school.
At 100 years old,
I thank the Lord I'm the only one still here.
Ella Dinkins is the oldest living resident of a quaint 1 square mile community of about 2,500 people. She remembers the town in her youth.
We only had dirt streets, no sidewalks, clay road.
Eatonville is one of the few surviving African-American settlements formed in the 18th, 19th, and early 20th centuries. The mayor credits that to God and
the tenacity and the perseverance of the people here.
The Eatonville Historic District was designated in 1998 and added to the National Historic Registry. It's comprised of 4 dozen buildings around the area, including this one. But it's the spirit of the people who call this place home that keeps the history and the heritage going.
Remember, this is where we came, and we can compare it from then and now.
Yes, ma'am.
I know I can.
In Eatonville, I'm Rod Carter.
Oh, what an amazing story. This, by the way, is the 30th anniversary of the Nora Zill Hurston Festival in Eatonville. This year, organizers expect a record 40,000 visitors.
Law enforcement agents are tasked with protecting communities. But throughout history, we've seen a mistrust between certain groups and the police. A museum, in Washington, D.C. hopes to strengthen relations by highlighting the history of law enforcement and having open dialogues about its future. Washington correspondent Bree Jackson tells us about the role one man played in improving public safety and race relations.
This badge, these sunglasses, and this nameplate belong to a pioneer in law enforcement and civil rights. Lucius Amerson was the first African-American sheriff elected in the Deep South since Reconstruction.
Before that, a largely African-American population in Macon County was not able to vote for their sheriff.
Rebecca Looney is director of exhibits and programs at the National Law Enforcement Museum. She says Amerson was an Army veteran who became sheriff of Macon County, Alabama in the late 1960s following the passage of the Voting Rights Act. She says many saw his election as a sign of progress for Black Americans fighting for equality and against police brutality.
It's a big step forward. I mean, we say that law enforcement needs to reflect our communities.
Lucius Amerson's story represents a defining moment in law enforcement history. Today, police departments nationwide acknowledge that maintaining and recruiting a diverse workforce is still a challenge.
What do we want? Justice! When do we want it?
Recent headlines have focused on the Black Lives Matter movement and the lack of trust between police and the public. Craig Floyd, CEO of the National Law Enforcement Memorial Fund, says he hopes the museum can play a part in easing those tensions.
We're going to have thoughtful, important conversations between the public and law enforcement.
The museum hopes sharing the stories of Sheriff Lucius Amerson, as well as the stories of men and women of all races who have given their lives in the line of duty, will help visitors better understand the vital role diversity plays in keeping our communities safe. In Washington, Bree Jackson.
Well, coming up, despite bondage, a rich African culture managed to trickle its way into different aspects of American life.
So they believed that they could talk to ancestors through the face vessels.
After the break, we'll explore contributions made to the world of art. Our Hidden History program continues in just a few minutes. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Missy Gibson. At John Gibson Auto Sales, we offer our customers the opportunity to buy almost any vehicle. We have over 900 cars, trucks, SUVs, motorcycles, ATVs, campers, performance trailers, and boats. We will finance your purchase in-house regardless of your credit history. You can actually make your purchase from home or on the go. Simply go online to johngibsonautosales.com and take a virtual tour of our inventory. We call it shopping made easy. See you soon at John Gibson Auto Sales, in person or online.
The general attitude in the public out there is they don't like lawyers. And I understand that because, you know, lots of times I don't like lawyers. But it's really not about the lawyer so much as it is about the people. I come ready to help a person solve their problem. The discipline, the dedication, and the focus on that particular person's problem is the difference.
Dallas is exactly what you think it is, and so much more. So come see this, feed that, eat here, and ride there to quickly discover the many sides of Dallas, where the art is eye-catching and celebrities are larger than life. From the jaw-dropping to the hair-raising, you really can do it all in Dallas. Get the most from your getaway and plan your trip at visitdallas.com.
Honda knows you're always on the lookout for something better. So it's no surprise the Honda CR-V was named a 2019 KBB.com Best Buy. It has an interior that's spacious and refined, handling that's smooth and comfortable, and an exterior that speaks for itself. So if you're looking for something truly impressive, look no further. Hurry into a Honda dealer to find a great deal on a CR-V.
We're learning more about Africans who entered America on one of the last 2 slave ships. Even though they are long gone, the slaves had an impact on the world of art. Dee Griffin shares their story that has been hidden in history.
Now calm and serene, the Savannah River was once a bustling, active route for importing and exporting goods in the river region. But its proud past includes a perilous period that changed lives and later influenced a segment of art culture.
The slave trade had been abolished in 1807 and really took effect in 1808. But this is 50 years later, in December of 1858.
Those slaves were brought to Georgia on a schooner called the Wanderer. Small boats were hired to take slaves up the Savannah River. About 200 were taken through the dark, murky water of Horseshoe Creek and into Edgefield County, South Carolina.
There's newspaper accounts that talk about how intelligent they were, how quickly they learned when they came here and started working on the different plantations and whatever field they were skilled laborers.
Although ripped from their country with an uncertain future, the slaves would not let go of a piece of their past. While working for local pottery manufacturers, they created face jugs.
They're very rudimentary, they're very crude, they're very small, and it's believed that they practiced the voodoo religion, and so they believed that they could talk to ancestors through the face vessels.
While no one can put a true price on the service of slaves, collectors are paying high dollar to get a piece of their work.
They do fetch a large price, yes. At auction, they can go from anywhere $12,000 to $25,000.
For Hidden History, I'm Dee Griffin.
Fascinating. The Wanderers were also known as compassionate people, so much so they helped a prisoner who was being kept in South Carolina. His name was John Ogden. He would later become one of the co-founders of a historically black university now known as Fisk University, located in Nashville, Tennessee.
And now our journey exploring untold stories of black history takes us to Rickwood Field, Alabama. In the early days of Birmingham's steel industry, industrial titan Rick Woodward built a state-of-the-art ballpark in the shadows of the Birmingham steel mills. Over a century later, Rickwood Field stands as America's oldest ballpark.
There's nothing else like it left. Everything else is gone by the wayside. Was he baseball crazy, or was he a good businessman? And the answer is he was both.
Well, the field was the home of the Birmingham Black Barons, the enterprise of the African American League Baseball in the South.
Coming up, from the baseball field to the kitchen. We'll head inside one of the most popular black-owned cafes in the South and explore how it got its start. Plus this.
If a man doesn't have anything to die for, he really is not fit to live. And boy, that gripped me.
A chance encounter forever changing one minister's life. Next, hear this reverend recall his experience marching with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Barry and I tell everybody, you have $1 and 2 relatives, you need to do some estate planning. If you have a will or do nothing, you're going to go through probate. But you can plan using a revocable living trust. Plan today. Take care of your family now. Call the Nash Law Firm.
Nothing beats free during FFO Homes President's Day celebration. Held over. Buy any Power Motion sofa, make it wireless for free. Purchase select sofa and love seat combos, receive a free set of lamps. Any Natural Elements mattress, you get a free sheet set or matching box spring. And 60 months interest-free financing with no money down. Come in for huge store-wide savings this week during FFO Homes President's Day celebration, where great quality furniture and mattresses live for less.
Worldwide Weapons in Bryant is your one-stop shop for all your firearm needs. We offer a huge selection of new and used weapons with everything from hunting rifles, handguns, and shotguns to tactical rifles, cowboy action pistols, and collectible firearms. Worldwide Weapons also has a huge selection of knives and archery equipment in stock. Come by today and see what makes Worldwide Weapons your best bet for your next firearm purchase. With over 1,000 guns in stock and layaway available only at Worldwide Weapons.
There's a lot to smile about in every Volkswagen. Hurry in this President's Day and get 1.9% APR on 2019 Tiguan or Atlas models. Plus, get a $1,000 bonus.
Has a loved one recently passed away and you're unsure what to do next? I'm attorney Casey Ziegler at the Nash Law Firm. And remember, if you have $1 and 2 relatives, you need to do some estate planning. Call today, 501-851-0040.
Welcome back, everyone. In the late 1960s, the Civil Rights Act had just been passed, but segregation and racism were still rampant.
Indianapolis Reverend Mel Jackson had just met Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And as David Williams reports, what happened next changed Jackson's life to this very day.
88-year-old Reverend Mel Jackson's first words to Dr. King were, well, memorable.
It's what I told him. I thought he was a wimp. I thought he should be ashamed of himself, leading people to get beat upside the head.
You see, Jackson was 35 at the time and had recently gotten out of the military. Soon after, Jackson left his home in Dayton, Ohio, and traveled the Midwest, organizing his own civil rights demonstrations at factories and business offices. Jackson says Dr. King told him about something different, fundamentally changing how the nation's system operates. Fast forward to 1968, Memphis, Tennessee. Reverend Jackson marched with Dr. King, demanding racial equality. That's when Dr. King told Jackson something that completely changed his philosophy.
If a man doesn't have anything to die for, he really is not fit to live. And boy, that gripped me. He said, now I'm willing to die for people that I love.
That tragedy came true April 4th, 1968, the day Dr. King was assassinated at Memphis's Lorraine Motel. President Lyndon Johnson called King the apostle of nonviolence.
Love really has no barriers.
50 years later, Dr. King's words, Jackson says, still resonate hope.
Jackson says through his time with Dr. King, he learned that love is about being willing to give all you are for the betterment of your fellow man.
We end tonight on an interesting and tasty note as we explore untold stories of Black history. Did you know one of the most popular Black-owned cafes in the late 1950s almost opened as a mortuary? Dreamland Barbecue has come a long way since it opened as a Hill Cafe in Tuscaloosa in the late 1950s. But just like the restaurant's famous "Ain't nothing like 'em nowhere" motto goes, there almost really wasn't anything like them anywhere. Former brick mason and founder Big Daddy John Bishop considered opening a final resting place instead.
Better than a mortuary, and we are so thankful that he made that decision.
I'm sure they are. And as the story goes, the final decision was made thanks to a dream. And Dreamland Barbecue opened in 1958.
I was reading before we came out here to do this newscast, and he was saying that way back in, I think it was the 1958, he was struggling for money. He was a brick mason, as you mentioned, but he was like, I need to find another source of income. So he literally gets down on his knees that night and prays to God and says, I need a decision here. I'm thinking of either opening a restaurant
or a mortuary.
And as you mentioned, the legend has it, God said, you know what, let's go with the cafe. And lo and behold, they're now in Florida, Alabama, Georgia, and you can buy the barbecue sauce online. I mean, it's just taken off.
And you know what, and just looking at the pictures of that barbecue, you know it's good. It has to be good if it's grown by leaps and bounds like that. So, what an awesome story, though. It came to him in a dream and thanks to a prayer.
There you go. Well, that's going to do it for this year's Hidden History program. We hope you've enjoyed this broadcast and learned something you might not have known.
And if you'd like a recap of any of these stories, just head over to our website, fox16.com, and search for Hidden History. We hope you have a great night, and we will see you on Monday. So long, everybody.